I never try to stop my creativity and go like, let me pull back. I'd rather shoot for it and go like, hey, this is what I was feeling. This is what I was thinking. This is what flowed through for the edit. 9 times out of 10, you send it over for revisions and they're like, yeah, we don't like this part. You're like, dang, I stayed up overnight for that part.
Well, welcome to Dijoun Farquharson. I'm excited to have you on.
Hey, what's up, man? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. So Dijoun, he's a cinematographer, filmmaker with Dijoun Films, and we go way back, over this past year.
Definitely. We got the chance to work together on a super dope project. And it was really a pivoting point, I think, when I came in and produced that video for you guys. So I was kind of in a hard place in terms of the business, in terms of like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? Like, I'm not really having the best, I want to say, client interactions in terms, it just
hmm
felt like the people didn't care,
hmm
besides the video. There was no human to human connection, and you were kind of the first person to be like, yeah, man, bump the video is going to be the video, but yeah, come hang out with us, come and shoot hoops, and just made it more personal. And um, from there it kind of changed the way I went about doing those productions. Definitely leading client first in terms of relationship, taking time to build rapport when we get there instead of just setting up and jumping right into the production. So definitely, yeah, you
It's
kickstarted a chain of events.
it's funny. I didn't know this. I mean, fair Dijon, we met, and you came out and did some filming, and we'll get into that. But
Mhm.
I didn't anticipate, starting here. But that's interesting because I know for those listening, I mean, we hit it off right away. I mean, to your point,
Yeah.
that night, I gave you my basketball shoes and some socks. I picked you up.
Yeah.
We went and played basketball because, for a little background, Dijon was like all state Florida, high school player. And I know you've dealt with some injuries, and anyone that's followed you, you're pretty active in cycling. You're an active guy, but
Yeah.
I'll say for not picking up a basketball in a long time, like you run that point really well. So,
Thank you. Appreciate it. It never leaves, man. It's always there. You know how it goes.
well, heck, man, if you're running point guard, that's why you're a filmmaker, cinematographer, man. You're used to directing traffic,
Yeah,
so.
a little bit, a little bit.
So walk us through. I mean, it was, I felt like we bonded a ton. Like there
Mhm.
was just a lot of common ground, and I think it's always important, in any aspect of interactions that you're building some sort of connection at some point, and whether it's, I try not to force it like you, John. I think you're pretty easygoing, very open, and
Mhm.
um, walk us through. So what changed now? Like because you do these shoots, you travel all over the country, filmmaking, and
Mhm.
how has that changed now?
So from there, it kind of definitely kickstarted a lot of stuff. I want to say it's one of my pieces, a really big portfolio piece for me. Was your
Right.
segment,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of just changed the way I looked at stuff. I mean, like the way I interacted with CEOs and the way I interacted, through the interview process. So it's, yeah, just bringing it back to like, again, we're still human beings. Like, I think a lot of times when we get into productions, we get too production-y and we're like looking for certain things instead of letting the actual, client as yourself, like just be real, and take that moment and build off of that story. So, yeah, the way I edit changed after that. I just, instead of trying to force a story for the program, started to just really dive into um, who we're working with, that company's story, like whatever that is. It could be super important to you guys to get it across, and it may not be for some other people, but I feel a genuine push to try to get the truest story I can from you guys of how you guys operate, that team culture, that family culture, and really push that when it comes to being aired on the television. So
It's really good, and I think you made a comment that let the client be real. I think that's can be tough. Like anytime you put someone behind a camera, right? Whether they experience or not, sometimes they become tense.
mhm.
There's other people watching, so it could become more tense. How do you alleviate just that aspect? As you're building rapport and trying to work through. Because for you, it's not like you're working with trained professionals all the time. So you're coming in trying to kind of
Right.
soften that landing for them.
Yeah, I think the first thing that we do when we come in, and we had the privilege of having Craig with us, who's an
hmm
amazing producer. Um, but we always try to talk before the shoots and just say like, hey man, like how do we get our clients to just let their guard down? Because obviously we're meeting for the first time as well, so it's like just try to find certain things that we connected to. And for me, it was basketball. As soon as you
Mhm.
a hint of basketball came up, and it was like, oh, I play, and it's like that's your moment to kind of break the ice, and then now
Yeah.
everyone becomes comfortable. So each person that you're interviewing, you just take 5 to 10 minutes and figure out how you can connect with them on whatever level it is. It may be that you have kids, so you connect on the kids side, or hey, I enjoy eating out. Oh, what are your favorite restaurants? Just breaking that ice and allowing them to feel comfortable and talking to you, I think has helped us a lot in terms of getting people to be comfortable and getting what we want for our side of the production.
Yeah, early in my career, there was a term called BRT, like build relationships of trust, and
Hmm.
I think there's value to people that are able to find common ground, and
Hmm.
like you mentioned, whether family or business or sports. I mean, there's so many different avenues, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you want it. Maybe Dijon, you're pretty brave. You want to go religion and politics. Who knows? Whatever works, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if,
uh,
if you're trying to break the ice, why not? Right?
yeah, right. Um, and there's room for that, right? You let that
Yeah.
happen. And just as an example, we shot with Providential, who are really good
Hmm.
friends with you guys, and
Hmm.
that's how we broke the ice. Me and Isaac, I wore a company that I do shoot for a lot, for its glory. He was like, "Hey, what does that shirt mean?" And that's how we
Yeah.
connected. And then it brings into, yeah, man, this is a brand I work with. These are my beliefs, and we kind of started hitting it off on that end. And then he had his daughter with him. I just had a fresh baby who's 4 months now.
Yeah.
So it's just so many levels that you can start to connect, and you just have to be open to letting that happen. So
Yeah. And we got to give Isaac some props because, like, for a while, I'm like, I need to get Dijon on the podcast. And then he's like, he calls me and he's like, I just filmed with Dijon. Like, hurry up. Why have you not had him as a guest on yet? So
we're literally in the truck. He's like, I'm texting Brad right now. I'm like, you builders move fast, man.
you do. You can't sit on your laurels, man. We don't, it's information in, information out for sure as a builder. And,
That's it.
Providential's it's been awesome. I connected with them last
Yeah.
year. I mean, a while ago. In fact, Isaac came on the podcast probably about a year ago. And
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, they're awesome. And they have a really unique business there in Texas and do a really good job.
They do.
It's been
Yeah.
fun to see what they're doing.
I'm excited for their segment to come up. I think you'll enjoy it too. So
Well,
it's a nice it's a good one. It's a good one. I'm
you do
excited for
such
it.
a good job. And I remember talking with you about this, that I think what's unique for you, Dijon, in this role is, being the filmmaker you're working with CEOs and executives and
Hmm.
from all different backgrounds and,
Right.
industries. How has that played a role as you think about the power of your network now and the collaboration, and kind of where you're forecasting your business?
So for me, yeah, it's a big spectrum. Like there's a lower level CEO who has a smaller company, and then we've worked
Mm.
with really really big CEOs. Again, just to bring it all back to one center thing, everyone is a human. So it instead of it being here, it becomes here, and you treat
Yeah.
everybody the same. And a lot of times, those big CEOs want to be treated that way. Their day to day is like always hustle and bustle and very very professional and corporate. They just want someone to talk to them, like, "Hey, how you doing, man? What's going on? Tell me about something besides business." But yeah, for my business sake, it's definitely helped me just to uh, walk in confidence. Being able to work with anybody. I was nervous coming to your show. I'm like, this is a very high level guy. He knows his stuff. He's content driven, so it's like, hey, we got to be on our A game. But again, I always step out in faith and put the best foot forward and just trust in being a good person and doing what's right, and it'll lead. It'll keep going. So as long as
Well,
you have
for
those.
for what it's worth, you're very prepared. I think when you came out with Craig, I mean, you guys were dialed in, like knew exactly what you're doing, walk around. And so I will say there is a confidence and aura like you bring to a shoot
Mhm.
that really relaxed me. And I think some of my team who doesn't spend as much time on camera for sure, and, but I think that's a key component because, in our segment, you're working with not just me, but, some of my team. And so you're
Mhm.
trying to cater through those different personalities and work through all that content.
Right. Yeah. For you, it was like, yeah, he's definitely been on camera. He knows his stuff. We called you the one take wonder, and then for other guys, and it's okay. Like that's what you're doing day to day. So
Yeah.
for them, it's like, how do I get them to the point where you're at on a 1 day
Mhm.
basis? Like, how fast can I get this person to feel as confident as Brad on camera? Um, And again, it's all information. So, and we do a lot of tweaking in the back. So I always reassure everybody, like, hey, like we're not just gonna put it out there like all crazy. We'll make sure you sound the best. So um, that's reassuring to them to just be like, all right, let me just go ahead and knock this out. But yeah.
So walk us through, I mean, maybe before I get into like how you prep for a shoot and, kind
Hmm.
of go into the editing, because I think there's a lot there to
Hmm.
unwind, especially because I know I want to talk about some business ventures you have. I know you and I collaborate on some possible collaboration moving forward, just
Yeah.
you and I. But
Hmm.
what brought you into this space?
Man, funny story. I mean, I've posted on my Instagram if anybody wants to go see a little short snippet of how I got into this. But basically, it was basketball was everything, right? That was the a goal. And when you're playing sports so young, that's kind of your focus. You don't tend to see what you're interested in outside of that. So as I got to college, it started to hit me like, okay, basketball is not going to be this option anymore. Like, I have no idea what I'm interested in, like, no clue. Like, I'm like, do I like art? Do I like this? So I went through a phase of just a bunch of different jobs, like Dick's Sporting Goods, pressure cleaning, like any job you can name just to see what fit. Construction work for a little bit. Like, I was knocking out tiles for a while. And then I got a GoPro and went on a family trip, and I made a little recap video, and everybody, oh man, like holy crap, you made that, and it's just something on iMovie. Um,
Hmm.
and then from there, I got the chance to work with one of my mentors here. His name's Jonathan Santiago. He sells real estate for Modern Living, which is I would call them family, more like they're not like a family friend business. Um, and that was my first big break. And he's like, "Hey, can you come shoot?" And I'm like, again, stepping out in faith. I have no idea. I've never shot anything production wise. I can come out with my GoPro and film and then edit what I can. So, and that's how I kind of bridged into that. And then it just progressed. Like as I got better, I was like, okay, let me look at some cameras. How do I keep adding to the repertoire of this industry? And then everything keeps, yeah, it's a snowball effect. As long as you're just taking one step, putting one foot in front of the other. Sorry. I think it's for me, the Lord is just providing those doors, and it's like, all right, hey, you're here now. You can step through this door. But I think there's a phase, and I think our culture is missing that. You have to take that time. Like a lot of times, we're so built into this Instagram of like, if I didn't get it this year, I failed. And that's not true. A lot of people that we're looking at, they've taken 10, 15 years at dedicated to their craft to be where they're at. So for me, it's just like every day, like, hey, just put in the work, and slowly but surely it'll come to fruition of what you want this industry to look like for you, and your business to look like. So yeah, got into it through the GoPro, man, and just having faith. And then I just got locked in. I got a really great mentor named James, who he shoots with us for Trending Today as well. And he's the one that got me the opportunity. And just, hey, man, can I come on a shoot with you? You don't have to pay me. I just want to hold your bags and then see, like, how do I really progress? Like, because I can't watch YouTube videos forever. I have to get in
Hmm.
the field and actually operate and be like, okay, this is what the lighting needs to look like. This is where he's putting it. This is how he's setting up audio. So just being a student of the game, and still, I don't think you should ever not be a student of the game. There's always someone higher up doing something that could potentially be a positive in your business. And they're progressing as well. So you're like, hey, you're progressing. Oh, I need help. Let me come help you, so that there's an exchange. I'm helping you for free or out of good faith, because you're gonna bestow some knowledge and wisdom on me for my business and what I'm doing. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
I love the background, how you mentioned with your mentor that you're like, hey, I'm going to go to the shoot for free,
Hmm.
not going to charge. I really want to be immersed and see how it's set up and the lighting. And, um, walk us through, because a lot of us in our careers, you kind of want to jump to the end, right? It's like
Yeah.
you may see someone on social media and be like, they're super successful. Like, I want to be there now. And so
Yeah.
for, the one drawback of social media is it makes you like super impatient, right? And I
Yeah.
think a lot of us are impatient
Hmm.
without understanding that there's a journey. I mean, people may look at you, Dijoun, and be like, he's so successful and he's doing all these amazing shoots and he's all over.
Yeah.
And I want to get into your Paris story with the drone because that's pretty funny. But you're traveling the world doing these shoots, and
Yeah.
but there's a process here. There's a timeline. There's chapters of this book
Right.
of progress and that
Hmm.
education. And so, as you started shadowing in the field, how has that impacted and accelerated your growth?
It's impacted a lot. I think it really took me to that next step of like, okay, like this can be a career, this can be a thing. For me, I naturally learned by doing. Sometimes I can watch a video and be like, yeah, I got it, cool. But for me, I have to, again, like you said, be immersed in it. So being there, going on shoots, he'll bring me on bigger shoots because he's into the film, movie production side of things. So going on those sets is a lot bigger than what we do. You know, it's a
Hmm.
gaffers, grips, like lighting packages are insane. So anytime I do get the chance and I am free, before I didn't have kids and I wasn't married, I was able to just be like, yeah, yeah, I can do it. Now I have to, have some discernment and go like, I can't do that project or I can do this one. It makes sense. But anytime you're there, you're just learning. And it could be someone that they even may be on the same level as you, but you go in there, they may interact with the client differently. And you're like, oh, I like the way he's interacting with that person. And you kind of take that for your business and go, okay, this is how I need to speak to this person, or this is how I need to operate with talent or with the clientele. So I think there's always something to be learned, always something to improve on. Um, and yeah, I just try to stay a student of the game, and I just know it. Like you can never, if you're in a place where you're like, yeah, I've learned everything, you're in the wrong place because
Hmm.
there's always something to be learned from any and everybody, and you just have to be open to it.
Yeah, and I think it's funny you bring that up because I think I've heard a quote. I can't remember specifically, but it's to the point that if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room,
Yeah,
right? So
hundred
it's
percent.
like, yeah, it's really like you should always be challenging yourself to some level.
Hmm.
What's interesting about your profession, Dijon, too, is that in my opinion, and maybe you can break this down, it feels complicated in this way. Is that not only, as you mentioned, you have to have the expertise of understanding when you're on shoot day
Hmm.
and you're trying to get the guests comfortable, you're trying to get it behind camera, you're looking at lighting, you're looking
Hmm.
at background noise. I mean, you're trying to coordinate just all the logistics of production and film.
Hmm.
But then you got to go back and edit, right? Which is a ton of time. And so
Right.
the cost metrics, as you're trying to figure out costing without getting into specifics, but just overall budgeting and what it costs to shoot, how is that now in your business as opposed to early on when you understand more of the time commitment, just not just from the shoot day, but the
Hmm.
editing, which typically takes a lot more time. And
Yeah.
how do you control that editing phase to make sure it lines within the budget and then it meets what you had proposed and everything else?
Yeah. So not to get too deep, but when I first started, it was kind of you took everything that came up. Um, like anyone said, "Hey, I got to shoot," I'll do it. It didn't matter the budget. You're like, "Yeah, I just
Hmm.
want to do it. I just want to be doing
Hmm.
it." And as I progress and as you get further in the business, again, life happens. You start to have kids. You start to get married, or you start to really try to scale your business. Time is our main component to what we do
Yep.
for every
Yep.
business. So you start to try to put a value on that, and you're like, "Hey, this is what I value my time at." In order to scale, you have to. It's, I would love to help everyone out and go like $500 or $1,000, whatever, to help everyone, but it's just not possible. You'll get burnt
Hmm.
out. You won't be putting out your best work. So you try to find a good equal space where you're charging the right amount, but also taking on the same amount of projects. So like before, it'd be like we're trying to knock out like 10 to 15 projects a month, which is a lot for video. And then you start to, hey, this is our budget. This is what we can do comfortably, and know that we can be putting out really, really good, content. So yeah, I don't want to get too specific into numbers, but
Well, yeah, yeah. I don't. I never ask any guess or numbers in
yeah,
any profession. That's not the intent. But
yeah,
but understanding, I think, knowing your business in
hmm
any business, whether you're in film, whether you're in construction, whether you're in design, understanding that chain of events, understanding that timeline from that initial conception call to the
yeah,
completion and video turnover,
yeah,
you have to understand and the amount of time and hours go in so that you can budget
hmm
appropriately so that you do make sure you compensate yourself for the proper
right,
value.
yes,
Do you audit yourself? Like as you finish projects, do you look at the amount of time you put in to say, hey, did I come out on top? Was I
yeah,
behind? Do I need to adjust this moving forward?
yeah. I most of the time, I would say month to month, especially on bigger projects, I go like, okay, how long did this project really take me? Um, when I, in the grand scheme of things, from like getting an email, hey, we're going to do this shoot, to shooting it, to editing it, to doing first or second round revisions, to like, hey, this is a complete file, all the raw footage is to you guys, everything's done. You definitely have to take a look back and go like, okay, like this is taking up a lot of time. I've also had to say no to a lot of projects, in that time frame to get this project done. And that's the other hard part, I think, that you have to deal with is like, I really need to get this done, but this person needs me to go shoot this. Do I go shoot it and then potentially put this one on extend the deadline of this one? So there's always that battle of like, no, let me just lock in what my time frame is for this, try to get it done, and then go on to the next project. And I try not to overlap projects just for my sake. It's just a bit too much. I like to focus on one thing. Other people are like, yeah, I can have 3 4 projects run at the same time, and to each its own. But for me, I like to give each client their time, like my undivided attention to their edit. I want, and it's a little bit of perfectionism, but I want to give my full to each edit and go like, I gave everything I had in this edit for what I could, for what was there, what we were able to film, and things like that. So
Well, I love that you do that because when you're in the creative space and if you're going through the editing and you're trying to edit multiple videos, I'd imagine just to compartmentalize that mentally, like it'd be really challenging.
yeah, you have some guys that can do it, but for me, I'm like, I gotta, with all the music and all the audio that you're listening to, I'm listening to these things like at least 100 times, the same words over and over to like. So if you're doing that multiple times with different dialogue, you're just, for me, I'd be all over the place. Things would start to get shambled. Um, but yeah, for me, I try to focus and really just find the story. Man, it's finding like, hey, this is okay. This is the direction. We did all the interviews, and sometimes this everyone says a little bit of says different things because you guys obviously have different roles, but there is a
Mhm.
key word, a key moment that's like, this is where the story needs to lead. And we try to find that as fast as possible, so that we don't take too much time on the back end trying to figure out the edit. But we pretty much do that day of through listening. When we're producing, I'll have Craig, if he's with me on a shoot, like write certain keywords. Like, hey, if you hear a word being or a topic being repeated, like, hey, write it down so that I know on the back end, like to look for that, and then start to build the story based off of that.
Yeah, I want to come back to the story aspect. I think there's,
Hmm.
some important content there, but going back to the auditing side,
Hmm.
a good analogy is I know some architects in town that they, having done it for a while, knowing the business, depending on if the client's building on the side of a hill or a mountain, that
Hmm.
price is different to a flat lot, and so they really understand the nuance of the lot location of the
Hmm.
project, and because of that, they're going to dictate, their cost structure, and it's very
Yeah.
similar to us that it's, fortunately for me, I'm cost plus. I'm tracking time and hours on every project, but it's important for us to go back
Hmm.
and look at all the, the diversity of projects we're doing. Well, how much time does it take to do this project as compared to this? Because it just allows you as a business owner to be more pragmatic, to
Hmm.
be more formulaic, and to really understand the pricing. So in that way, you're not only being competitive for your customer, but you're also making sure you're fully compensated.
Right, right. And I seen that you guys actually had like 3 different projects in the same area.
We did. Yeah.
So you have Project Blow Your Mind, and then you had 2 other ones that's like a street over. And it's
Yeah.
like, tell me a little bit. I'm sorry, I know you're the host and you're asking me questions, but I really want to know that. Like, how is that difficult? Like having them so close together, pricing wise, and just logistic wise. Like, how does it work?
Yeah, well, first off, never apologize because the whole point of this podcast is to ask me questions and not just be one sided, right, Dijon?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
far away. But logistically, it's hard as a builder. I think one of the most complicated things that I deal with as a builder is there's no even flow, right? And what I
Hmm.
mean by that is some of my projects take 12 months in design, some take 18, some
Hmm.
take 24. And so you have all these projects in design and sometimes they get pushed out, sometimes they hit at once. And so you're just kind of scatterbrained, like, okay, where are they starting? And then you add the complexity as that I'm not doing developments or like
Yeah.
big sites with 100 homes. I'm doing one off,
One home.
custom. Yeah, as you saw that. And so I have projects that are 70 miles apart. I mean, projects that are an hour and a half
Yeah.
apart. And so you have to, as a company, think, okay, well, where's my staff in the north side or the east side of town, and
Hmm.
my office. And so logistically, it's tough. For us, I've been very open that it's we don't have a minimum. I just want to work for good people. Like, it's a high stress environment. It's a high stress career.
Hmm.
It puts a lot of stress on my team.
Right.
And the trade base and suppliers. And so you want to work for people that really appreciate the value you bring, right,
Hmm.
at AFT. And so we've really formulated that aspect of it. And but to answer your question, fortunately, you have projects by each other. That's great. Sometimes they're not close, and you have
Yeah.
to really figure out. Again, this goes back to commute and drive time. How many
Hmm.
projects can one super handle? Can they do two of them if they're far apart? Could they
Hmm.
do three if they're next to each other? And that impacts clients' budget. That income impacts our bottom line. And so there's definitely, going back to like this whole conversation, is that you have to understand your business and durations and timeframes and the hours you put in, because otherwise you have no idea if you're profitable or not,
Right. Hmm.
or charging you your worth.
Yeah. So timing. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's hard, and I think a lot of, again, and I'm young in my business, so it's something that I'm still actively working on. Um, to be like, all right, was I profitable in this project, or you know, and profit, it could be small. It doesn't have to be big, but you want to just always be on the top side of certain things. Sometimes you may lose. You may take one and you're like, I took a loss for this, but I think that's where you have the discernment of like, but this is going to be, this project specifically will bring in more. Some you're like, this project's a one off. We probably won't get anything from it. Um, and then you have some that you're like, no, this is a really great piece. Maybe we do need to take the hit on the front end to hopefully have something promising on the back end. But I think you just discern that judgment and go
Yeah,
from
it's a
there.
good point. I mean, as a business owner, you're always discerning that, because there could be a loss leader. There could be an opportunity that, hey, I may not get compensated as much or maybe my worth,
Hmm.
but it's going to open this door. And so you can definitely, leverage those opportunities as they come in.
Yeah.
But you brought up an experience, because or I should say, you brought up an interesting point, Dijon, because you were talking about, well, as I look at my business now, my life, being married and kids, there's
Hmm.
different responsibilities, but there's also an experience level, right? I mean, looking at where your business is today to early on, you have a lot more experience and you're going to be compensated. And so it's not just compensating because you have other commitments in your life.
Right. Right.
It's just you're in a position where there is more credibility. You've had a lot of success. You've
Hmm.
produced great content, and so it puts you in a different sphere where now you can kind of work hand in hand.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think as you grow in the business, yeah, you start to have the number one portfolio to back you, because a lot of times that's the issue, is that you don't have the portfolio behind you, you don't have work that people can see, and once you start to acquire it, it definitely allows you to come on the offensive side and be like, hey, this is my value, this is my worth. I've worked with these people, I know what I'm talking about, I know what I'm doing. And you keep building upon that. And you also have to know your market too, where you're living at. That's another thing. I think a lot of people, for Instagram, really in this day and age, is like everything is always, this is what you should charge, and people don't take the time to just really like, let me vet this information and go like, does this work in my field, in my area? Because you may be in an area that doesn't have tens of thousands of dollars to throw at a project, so you have to price based off of that. Which I think is also a point to keep, like, hey, what is our market? What can our market afford? Because if you leave it up to Instagram and the Instagram gurus, hey, you need to be charging $50,000, and it's like, hey, dude, you live in like Timbuktu, like they
Yeah,
don't have that.
yeah,
So you also
yep.
have to be mindful of that. But I definitely think the portfolio part of it is what gets you the chance to even start to scale.
Hmm.
So again, going back to, I don't want to say I'm advocating to do free work, but we call them passion projects or spec ads. Go shoot a project that, if I wanted to get into the construction side of business for video or real estate, find somebody that or offer someone like, hey, I'll work on this project, um, free of charge. It's for you, but it's mainly for a portfolio piece so that I can go and pitch to these other companies. And I just think it's still a great way to get business. Like, take the time
Hmm.
to go shoot the project, do it how you want. That's the best time, because just to be real, it's like once you start to add more hands to the pot, it doesn't become your edit, and it's not the way you want, right?
Mhm.
You're at the mercy of the client, and the client's like, I know you like that little effect, but I don't. So now you have to take it out. So to do the spec ad, make it how you want, and then you'll acquire the clients that want that similar. So it'll be even easier to get a client, because then you're like, oh, you like this style of video, I do too, and now you guys hit it off, and you're able to acquire clients that way. So
How does, as you think about that when you're kind of at the mercy of the client, how often do you feel that you have to curb your creativity based on the client or customer, and you don't have full access?
it's very rare. Um, I would say 9 times out of 10, you're gonna get something where you're like, you spent so much time on that specific part, and you're like, oh, I really love this part, and then you send it over for revisions, and they're like, yeah, we don't like this part. You're like, dang, I just spent, I stayed up overnight for that part, but yeah, you have to. Craig is really a big one. He's like, once the client pays, it's what they want, and I'm always the one that's like, oh man, but I worked so hard on that. It's something you live and learn with. You still try. You never know. I never try to stop my creativity and go like, let me pull back. I'd rather just shoot for it and go like, hey, this is what I was feeling. This is what I was thinking. This is what flowed through for the edit. And if they like it, they like it. If they don't, it's okay. Like at the end of the day, we're giving a service, so then we change it to what they want, and we go from there. And at the end of the day, it's client satisfaction, right? When the video's finished, where is everybody happy? And for me, I'm happy if the client is happy with their video. Um, so
Which is good. I mean, that client facing. So, how do you prep for a shoot when you come in and you're on the move? You're traveling around the country. Um, Amount of time and research goes into prep for that.
mhm. So for prepping for us is on the front end, obviously, from inception. We get the production schedule set, we get the story treatment set, making sure all the questions are in, um, and then travels booked and stuff like that. And then I go into my day to day just making sure I have everything, like every piece of equipment I have, like backup equipment. We try to bring as much as possible. And our setup was very fast, and we've battle tested it because we used to come with a lot of gear, and it was like, all right, this is not efficient for us to be moving around to different interview locations. So the setup that you did see is like, that is the nitty gritty. We can get the job done with this. And then from there, it's yeah, it's kind of simple. Production schedule, everything's there. We have our questions. We know who we're. That schedule is is gold for us, and we try to stick by it. Because we're in a small time frame, when we're doing
Mhm.
that stuff. So, but prep is pretty simple. It's again gear, making sure you have the everything that you need and a little bit of extra, and then going from there.
And then outside of the research, because you kind of mentioned that what's really important is that hook, that story.
Hmm.
Do you typically have it figured out what the story will be, or do you feel it's kind of more organic once you get to know, the client?
It's definitely organic. A lot of times I can go on the website and try to look and be like, okay, what am I drawn to for this business? And this is just my background research. Like once we have the client, hey, this is who we're shooting with. I'll look through like, okay, what are their reviews saying about their business, and
Hmm.
just trying to find a key point. Like, okay, their main thing was, for an example, is, oh, they were really great working with us person to person. So like, okay, so they're a very personable company. So how do we touch on that? Or, when the time comes and we're interviewing, how can we, I don't want to say steer it, because I like to let things be organic, but in a way to where like the best part of their business comes out. Um, and then again, like I said earlier, I look for keywords, um, it could be passion, right? Hey, they're a very passionate company. So it's like,
Hmm.
how do we steer their story to talk about passion, and whoever's watching to feel that they are passionate when they're watching the video, and passionate, like, hey, that company is passionate about the work that they're doing. So it's little keywords like that. But we definitely try to make it organic. and allow it to go. Because obviously, some companies will have they may want their story to go a certain way, so they all kind of practice and rehearse for it. Which again is another thing, you have to give yourself grace and allow the day to be the day, and wherever the interview goes and whatever's on your heart is going to come out. So um, we try to tell them like, hey, whatever you rehearsed, whatever you tried to like practice, usually goes out the window.
Yeah.
I would say 10 out of 10. Like since I've been doing this, it's like, oh, we practiced this, and but we're actually saying this now, and I'm like, yeah, that's how it goes, because the day of,
Mhm.
that's what you really wanted to say. So I always just try
Mhm.
to tell people to be, again, we're all humans. There's going to be another human being watching this, like on
Mhm.
the screen. So just talk to them as if you would talk to them in person, or if you were having a business meeting with them, like,
Oh, it's really good. And then I think what's tough is when you're trying to kind of meet a client in a few minutes, figure out the story, you're trying to get
yeah,
them comfortable. How difficult is for you when you're filming in the same industry? So Providential, for example, to me,
yeah,
as you're working maybe in the construction side or the
yeah.
tech side or real estate side, whatever it is, do you find it different or difficult to come up with like different ways to film or be creative and make them different?
So yeah, let me see. Yeah, I would say it is difficult. Being that we filmed yours a year ago, and it's, you guys are in the same industry, like
Hmm.
going to the same, almost the same conferences, and like it's like, oh
Yeah.
no, we actually know each other. So there's a level of it where you're like, okay, I really have to try to make this different. And I
Yeah.
think again, you go, okay, what are they saying? What, again, the people that are looking, they're gonna say luxurious home, like, oh, the
Yeah.
home is so beautiful. We got
Hmm.
that point. But what is making them be different from
Different.
each other? And
Hmm.
that's all we try to get at. And I try to tell them, like any client, like, hey, like, everyone sees this stuff. Everyone sees real estate every day. Everyone sees a beautiful home. They can go on Instagram and see a beautiful home.
Hmm.
That's amazing. But what is it that's going to separate you when it's your time to build a home or your time to buy a house? Like when you go and meet Brad in person, what is that one thing? When you go and meet Isaac in person, what is that one thing that they're pushing, that's going to separate them? So that's all we try to get at, and then go forward with that for the story.
You touched on this already, Dijoun, but as you look at just the amount of content. I look when I go out and film, and one thing I need to do better as an organization, I'll be out filming stories for Instagram
Yeah.
or, and I have all this content on my phone, and then you forget about it or you don't put it in the right folder at the time.
Right.
For you, it's a little bit different because you may be asking, like you said, the same question 12 different ways,
Yeah.
and you're doing individual takes. And so there still has to be time, even if mentally you're like, oh, that's a good answer. That's out of
Hmm.
the 12, that's your best one, but you still got to go back,
Yeah.
find that, and then make sure everything's clean and audio's good,
Right.
and then put that together.
So for us in the timeline, what I like to do, I put everyone's interview in the timeline. Again, cut it up, highlight each person into a different color, so I know, like, hey, Brad's interview was in yellow, Spencer's was in blue, and then I can easily hop back to a portion. But as I'm making selects for the interview portions, I like to just bring them up a notch. So like it'll be on, section one, and if I like it and it's, I consider an A piece, like, hey, this is a very great soundbite, it goes up one level. So now I know that all my A selection sound bites are on one level, and then I pick a B, like, okay, if this doesn't work in the actual edit and I need a backup, now I move it to the third section, so this is my B, and I kind of organize it like that, so then I can jump back and forth, where, like, okay, this A piece didn't work. I need a B piece for this, for Brad, for example. So I can go to that section and see, like, okay, now this one works. So yeah, I definitely found a system that makes it work. Um, but yeah, once we get back, we dump all the raw footage. Everyone gets their own folder, B-roll matching up. Like when we did your individual B-roll,
Mhm.
that gets matched up with you. So we try to, on the front end, before it even goes into the actual edit, just have it super organized so we know where to go. I would say before I used to struggle with that. I would just dump everything on hard drives, and I'm like, oh god. Now I'm like really backdating things, like
Mhm.
what year do we shoot it, what date, what time frame. So yeah, organization is key to keep you going for us.
No, it's similar to us. What's interesting is your company evolves, and I look at AFT now. Us now, as opposed to 11 years ago, we're a lot more organized. We have a lot more document control, a lot more processes. I mean, it's something you have to refine over time and realize that there's a better way, there's a better method to organize all my content, and it just allows you to be more efficient and make sure that you're, bringing the best value you can for your clientele.
Hmm.
So, from your side, Dijon, as you look at kind of career now, I think you touched on this. Was it your mentor that helped you get involved with trending today? How did that opportunity come involved?
Yeah, so um, for Trend today, they were expanding, looking for another videographer or filmmaker to be able to do projects. So he was our A list filmmaker. He would go on the brunt of the projects, um, but they were again looking to expand and go, hey, we want to be able to send two guys out and know that we can still produce the same amount of quality, um, and just be able to do more, right? So instead of knocking out two projects, we can do four. So he'll knock out two, I can knock out two. So that's kind of where the idea came from. And, they brought me on a shoot and he's like, hey, do you think you could do this? And again, stepping out of faith at the moment, I was like, I don't know if I can do this, bro. Like traveling away, bringing my own stuff, setting things up by myself, was very different in a way from like just being local. Like, do I got to fly with my gear? Like, whoa, like I gotta stay in a hotel by myself, or meet this person. Like it was different. So, but again, just stepped out in faith and said, "Yeah, let's do it." Sent me on my first one, and from there, you just keep getting better. You keep adding. Okay, this step is better for us. Uh, on our next shoot, we're gonna do this, and the opportunity came, and I just seized the moment, and it's been great so far. I love working with Trina today.
It's awesome. How's that opportunity catapulted you in other ones? Like, what does the business look like now? How has it grown? Different projects you have coming up.
It's great. I'm actually getting. It's funny. I'm getting a lot of inquiries from other builders in our area.
That's awesome.
They're like, "Hey, we saw what you did for Brad." I'm like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah." I'm like, "It's not gonna be the same." Like, I always try to prep people because they'll see something and be like, "Yeah, we want that." I'm like, "There's obviously a level that Brad's at that makes it easy for us. Like you're building stuff that other people aren't building. So, and they may be early on in their career,
Hmm.
and it's like, all right, it takes time to get to that point, but these are we can help you with those steps. So, yeah, just some more inquiries about that. So, potentially going to be working with someone in Miami. I won't say their name, but
Hmm.
potentially going to start helping them in terms of like their overall content, not just like one video, one master video. It's like, hey, how can we, learn from Brad and see like, hey, this is the success he's having by just having his phone out. Like, and
Hmm.
people forget like it's in your pocket. Like all you gotta do is document. We're in this
Hmm.
this age where everyone wants to see the process, and I think you're knocking it out of the park with that. And everyone I tell, I'm like, look, this is. I always pull your page up. I'm like, look, it's this easy. Like not that it's easy, but I'm saying
Yeah.
it is easy. Like, hey, like you have a phone, like document it, and then if you need an editor, cool. Then you say, hey, I took these videos. I don't know what to do with them. Can you put them together for me?
Yeah.
Now you're at a different step. So,
Hmm.
um, exciting projects. Working on some golf stuff. Hopefully soon. I'm speaking this into fruition. Hopefully we lock it in. But
Hmm.
yeah, working with a startup golf company. So yeah, just little avenues. They'll see the portfolio and they're like, hey, we like what you're doing. And then the simple Instagram helping out with the reels and stuff like that. So
So,
definitely excelled from shooting with you guys.
well, it's awesome. I mean, I love it. I've been following along, and
Yeah,
even I think you have to touch on. It was funny because Ryan, who you met, so Spencer and Adam, who you remember, which
yeah.
shocks me, you remember their names. I mean, it's pretty impressive because you were only out here one day, so you remember Spencer and Adam, and then Ryan, who we met at the second project, we went to film at.
Yeah.
I remember that morning. He calls me. He's like, "Bro, did you see Dijon's story about him in Paris? Him in France with his drone." So walk us through, kind of, as you're traveling around the world, how important it is to kind of understand, the software and tech you're bringing into the country.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we're in Paris. for a shoot for Trend today. Crazy opportunity. Definitely thankful for that one. That was like the A list. So me and James went on that one. It was like, yeah, we're gonna knock this one out the park. And man, like I had flew from Tulsa because so we travel a lot. So I was in Tulsa filming a segment, and then from Tulsa I flew to Paris. So I was out for almost like I want to say like a week and a half away from home. And when you're in America, you're just going like you're like yeah, I can fly my drone anywhere as long as it says I'm okay to. We get to Paris and you're just starstruck by these things that you see like on Google. You're like, dude, the Eiffel Tower, like
Yeah.
what the heck? And naively, I checked briefly, but I didn't double check. And drones weren't banned like a week before we came.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it's
But they
recent.
banned it because this year was the Olympics,
Olympics. Yeah, they
and
had Olympics.
they were having some protests as well. But we're sitting at McDonald's in Paris, and we're talking about the Rush Hour scene. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, Rush
Uh-huh.
Hour.
I have. Great movie.
We're literally talking about it 10 minutes. I'm like, dude, the day finally clears up. It was a bit gloomy day of production, so we got what we could. And then I was like, hey, if the sun breaks even a little bit, I'm gonna send a drone up. So I have it in my backpack. Sun breaks. I'm like, awesome. We're talking about this scene. We're like, dang, you remember when they got pulled over at the
Yeah.
airport? They took them back. We go, whatever. We're laughing about it. I take the drone out and I'm getting like shots that I'm like, oh man, like I gotta send this to like National Geographic or something. Like just a kid. It was like a kid with candy,
Yeah.
and it all like went from a high 10 to a 1. You know, that same scene, like 10 cars pull up, like they hop out, they're speaking French. I'm just like, hey, like this is what I do for a living. I'm trying to show them our Instagram page and stuff like that. Um, but ended up spending 6 hours at the police station. Yeah, they kind of ruined our entire day. We had a lot of stuff planned for that day. But just being naive. So as a filmmaker, definitely do your due diligence in checking the drone laws, checking like double triple check, like, hey, is it okay for me to fly? My drone allowed me to fly everything that it does normally in America, but
Hmm.
it's different in a different country, and they take it super serious. And there was a president protest a block away where we were flying from, so they thought we were a part of that. They're like definitely yeah, it was a crazy experience.
So,
Super
so
crazy
what runs through
experience.
your mind as you're sitting in a jail, right? Or you're, there in Paris, not knowing.
That I'm just a regular filmmaker. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so they definitely probably think I am like a terrorist or something. Like, and I'm trying to reassure them, hey, like I'm not. This is what I do for work. They had to bring a translator in. Like that's how heavy
Hmm.
the difference in language, bad language barrier, and I'm just like, my phone's not working. I had to take James's phone with me because he paid to have messaging outside.
International. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like moving from Tulsa, so I'm just like I'm not even worried about that stuff. I'm just like, let me get on my flight, not thinking of those things. And so I had to take his phone, and I'm like texting him, and hey, I don't even know where I'm at. Like I don't know the address to this police station. Um, but definitely terrified, man. I'm like, they're like, hey, you might have to stay. I'm like, stay. I'm like, I'm not staying. I've seen this scene in Rush Hour. I'm not going anywhere. So it's a lot of back and forth and a lot of just like sitting and waiting and them like asking, hey, how much does the drone cost? And for me, it just turned into, you know, one of those things where I think like they knew it was an expensive drone and they're like, okay, like we can kind of spook this kid and make him feel like he's going to stay and then, or, and give us the drone um, and they ended up saying like, hey, we'll keep the drone and you can go home or you'll stay and we'll lock you up and you'll see the prosecutor tomorrow. I'm like, yeah, I'm going home. You keep the drone.
I was
I'm
gonna
like,
ask if you kept the
I'm like,
drone, so they took the drone.
they took the drone. Yeah. So I'm like, my wife was pregnant. I'm like, dude, I got to get back home. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I could care less, but not that I could care less, but you're just like, I want to be out of the
Yeah.
situation. Like, so they took my fingerprints and everything like that. They said it stays in the system for like 10 years. So, but they were just, the translator was super cool. She's like, they want the drone. Like, just give them the
Mhm.
drone and you'll be on your way. And I'm like, all
Yeah.
right. It
Yeah.
definitely hurt. It definitely hurts. It's like a big purchase for the business, but um, yeah, you live and you learn.
Mhm.
It happens. But it was just a funny story. I mean, the way it happened, we were talking about the scene right before, and then boom, it happens, and I was kind of pinching myself, like, am I dreaming? Like my first time in Europe, like in Paris.
Getting arrested in Paris, and Paris
Never
is a
been
great
arrested.
city.
Never been arrested in America.
But, I mean, in your defense, like, Paris is a great city. It's like
It
their
is.
monuments are incredible, the
Yeah,
architecture, like, it's one of my favorite cities for
yeah,
sure.
and they're protecting it, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the
Yeah.
day, you're just American guy who's
Yeah.
here. Like it was very real. So now I'm even more so. Even here,
Mhm.
still, I'm just like,
Very
let me
cautious.
make sure. Yeah, very very cautious.
Mhm.
You don't know who's in town. You know,
Yep.
some high level people that they have to watch for that. That's their job.
Mhm.
So yeah, but definitely a scary moment, man. Like I was like, whoa, I could be stuck here.
Yeah.
I'm like, could have called my parents or anything like that. The only person I'm allowed to talk to is like James and stuff like that. But we ended up, they got me out. The whole day was shot. And then I was like, let's just grab dinner, call it a day.
Mhm.
Like, I'm ready to pack my bags and get to the airport. Cause they were like, oh, if we really want to, we can like put a warrant for your like face. And when you get to the airport, they'll just detain you. I was like, I don't think I slept that night. I was like, we need to be at the airport at like 3 a.m. Like, I'm
Yeah.
going through security.
And getting out
I'm like,
and
I'm
get me
sitting at the
home.
gate, and we did. And then, but they just, once your name is hit for anything police wise, they just triple check. So they were like
Mhm.
swabbing my bags, like for bomb residue and stuff like that. Just being
Mhm.
cautious. But I would go back, just
Good.
not with the drone.
Yeah. So what do you do for fun?
You know what I do for fun,
I
Brad.
do. The audience doesn't.
Yeah, yeah. So right now I picked up cycling about a year ago, and drastically changed my life. I was 40 pounds heavier. Again, like I have a background in basketball, so I'm a fit guy. I understand what being fit, the benefits of it. So I was just searching for that. I couldn't play because I tore my ACL. It was very hard, just the impact on the knees, like every day. So like I can get up and go play like a 2 day, or like, all right, we want to play basketball for 2 days, but after I'm struggling. And then I got the bike, and just the freedom of just being out, no one's talking to you, your mind's kind of free. That just helped to just kind of like, all right, every day I can do this. And I was looking to find something consistent in my life that activity wise was like, hey, I can get up every day at this time and go and put in like an hour or 2 hours of work. um, and then it just, everything snowballed. It turned into just being about riding to, holy crap, I'm losing a little bit of weight, let
Mhm.
me keep going, because I've always wanted to get back to kind of that high school weight, just to feel better. And then I met a couple guys, and they're like, hey bro, you should race. Like, you're strong as heck, like you're a natural. And I'm like, I don't know about that. um, and then I have a really really cool bike shop here named LC Tri Shop, who blessed me with a bike, like, um, at a super discounted rate. And from there, yeah, we just hit it off with those guys, and we ride every weekend, group rides, 40, 50 people group rides, and having fun. And it's just another outlet, like pickleball or anything else. You
Mhm.
just find a group, and you're just having camaraderie, talking about life, talking about kids, and talking about goals. So this is very a big part of my life now, where I'm actively training for certain races, or not just like leisurely riding. A lot of everything's pretty structured now.
Mhm.
Um, I think that's the part that sucks about it, is because it was something else just for fun, and then now it's like,
Super competitive.
yeah, like, oh, you're gonna go out for an hour ride? No, I have to do 4 hours today because of
Yeah.
my training schedule. So, but I mean, it's a load of fun. I like the fast. I like going fast. I like speed. Basketball was the same thing. I was very quick on the court.
Mhm.
So it just brought that joy that I haven't had that joy from when I stopped playing up until when I got the bike. So it brought that back, and everything else has just been kind of fun. And if there's anything stressful that's happening, I'm able to take the bike out for a couple minutes and just be able to reset,
Yeah.
um, and then go again. So yeah, that's what I'm doing for fun right now.
That's awesome, man. Well, Dijon, you've been incredible. I really appreciate the friendship and
Of
coming
course.
on. I know you're busy making an hour out of your day. It means a lot for the audience. And so for those listening, because we do have a lot of listeners that
Yeah, yeah,
are pushing content and
yeah.
our space really well. So
Hmm.
for them to reach out, contact you, have you start creating content for them, and as you mentioned, you could be in person, you could be remote, you can edit behind the scenes. I mean, there's a lot of options there for them.
Oh,
So
definitely. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, how can they
Um,
find you?
so obviously on Instagram you can find me at Dijoun Films, which is DIJOUNFILMS, and then you can check out my website as well. Same thing, www.dijounfilms.com. Check out my portfolio. Drop me an inquiry. We can email, and those are the two spaces that I'm on actively right now. Mhm.
Well, you crush it, Dijon. So all of you should be reaching out because he does a really good job. And Isaac and I talked about like he was super pumped about his. So kudos to you,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. Thanks, man. Brad, appreciate you, man. It's so
Likewise.
funny
So
how we connected. It's
I know. And here we are, and more to come,
yeah,
more to come.
yeah,
So,
yeah, definitely. Awesome.
well, thanks, Dijon. If you get value from the show, please support us by giving a 5-star rating and review on whatever platform you listen to. And I also have a favor to ask. We've had some incredible guests that come on and share their wisdom, their knowledge about their business. So if you have friends or family members that could benefit from those episodes, please share it with them, as well as any other business owners that you're networking with that could get value from the podcast or certain episodes. Please share those as well. Again, subscribe, make sure you're following. Any questions that you have, topics. We've had listeners reach out about certain guests that we should have on the show. Again, brad.l@aftconstruction.com. Email me for topics to address, guests that we should have on, and even if you think you'd be a great guest for the show. So again, thank you for all your support, and we'll see you next time.